Hello and welcome to the Modern Witches video podcast. We are excited to be recording this for our audio listeners as well as for our YouTube channel. So if you're listening and want to take a look at some astrology charts with us, head over to our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes. This episode is dedicated to Cancer season and the summer solstice. And I'm very excited to be here with my co-hosts, Karima and Mariana. Hello and welcome.
Hi, guys. Hi, Casey.
Hi.
We were just saying before we hopped on how it feels nice to have solstice to look forward to. We're recording this just a week before solstice arrives. And it's such a special time of year. I'm wondering how you two relate to or work with the solstice, summer solstice.
Yeah.
Do you want to start, Mariana?
Sure.
You let me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's such a special time in the wheel of the year where that it's like a peak, like as we know, it's the longest day, shortest night. I always approach solstice as a time where I'm very conscious about what is the solar presence in my life, what is that life-giving energy, what fuels me, what fills me up, what makes me wanna be like childlike, because it's a sun, like I associated like obviously like solstice with a pinnacle of the position of the sun. So, and because sun rules Leo, I'm always thinking about that. And I think even before we started recording, I was like, a fun, joyfulness. What sparks this body truly? Because solstice happens during in the beginning of the Cancer season, right? And moon is our body. And what fuels and fills our body up with good things that can take us through the next cycle is what I think often about solstice.
I'm not gonna repeat what you said, Mariana, because I do agree with you, of course, but I like solstice. And we can also work with equinox, but it's like, astrology is cycle. We work with different cycle. It can be conjunction, it can be whatever, a new planet entering a new sign like Pluto in Aquarius, and people works in years and cycle and patterns. But what I like about the equinox is like the 6 months pattern. Like we work with summer equinox and we try to build up into summer solstice, sorry, and we build up into winter solstice. And it's like a 6 months pattern where we see how we grow, where we see how we evolve. And we used to work with new moon. I'm working with new moon, I'm working with full moon, and I'm working with like big conjunction, as I said. But like working with solstice and equinox is kind of working closest to the earth. And because we're totally embodying the weather, embodying the season, depending on where you're living. And it's just another way to work with time and to work with energy. And of course, it's linked to the astrological pattern and weather because of summer solstice hit right at the beginning of Cancer season. And then you have winter solstice, who hit right at the beginning of Capricorn season, both cardinal sign, both signs that are very about protecting, nurturing, more of course Cancer, but it's very about protection. And I, in different way, we have Cancer very linked to emotion, Capricorn really linked to material life. And so it's very interesting for me to work in those 6 months period. And I feel more aligned to work with equinoxes or solstice because they're very linked to the weather and where we live on Earth. And I can see it live happening and unfolding. So it's a very exciting time, of course. And summer solstice is fun. It's hot. Summer is joy. It's a vacation. It's like I see summer solstice vacation at the beach. It's like this kind of nice time that we have compared to the winter solstice, which is way more like deeper, we'll say, more intense. We're looking more at the dark side of our evolution. Here we're looking more at the bright side, and it really is the sun. We embody the sun. We embody the flowers, everything related to the sun, or the heat, or hot. So it's a fun time for me, summer solstice. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like you both kind of speak to like a sense of saturation that the summer solstice is about. It's like we're filling ourselves up, we're filling our vessels up with blessings and solar information. And, it reminds me of how summer solstice is traditionally such a good time for making medicine or harvesting herbs, because that's like the height of their potency, having been saturated with all that solar influence. Um, you know, and it's no coincidence that this happens at Cancer season, as Karima and Mariana were both saying. We think about summer solstice as like the solar holiday, which it is. And in order for us to sort of like capture the wisdom of the sun, we need some kind of like vessel for that. And I think water, or like the moon, Cancer, being this like nurturer, is able to like hold that really beautifully. So yeah, it's such a beautiful time for just like being open to what you can like welcome in as a blessing, to calling in blessings, um, to participate in gratitude for what is, and just trying to find a way to really celebrate the nature of what's happening, and the nature of this precious planet we live on.
Yay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we can dig in. Oh, sorry.
So no, I just wanted to just point out what you said about herbal medicine, and I love how spring bring flowers, and bring the herb, the world of the herb at the highest point, and then there's the harvest, and there's how you work with earth, and summer solstice is a great time to do it. And yeah, I do think it's a great time for herbalists too.
Very much so. Whether or not you're harvesting or making an oil, like an herbal infused oil, in the sun, it's a really good potion making time for sure. Essence making, all of that. Okay, so we're excited to be sharing some charts with you today. And we're using Luna astrology software, which we all use in our practice. And I'm going to get that going. Thanks for being with us on this journey as we foray into video podcasting. We're very excited to hear your feedback and comments, and it's all appreciated.
It's a learning curve. We've been here before and coming back here again. Just exciting.
Yeah. So, Luna is such a great software. I just want to say, for anyone who's like new to astrology and beyond, it's really straightforward. The interface is super elegant. And we do have a discount code for our listeners of 50% off with the code Confluence. So if you want to check out Luna, definitely do that. And hopefully this will give you a taste of what it can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do like Luna for one thing in particular, is like when you're new in astrology and you try to figure out the pattern, the square, the trine, etc., and you might not be able to see everything, like clicking, you just have to click on one planet and they will show you how they interact with everything on the chart. And that is very like what drew me to Luna for this, is like even when you put your chart on transit and you have maybe 2 or 3 charts in at the same time, it will do it, and will do it beautifully. And I really enjoy having this shortcut in my, like, when I do a chart reading or something like that.
It is very convenient interface, I have to say. It's like boiled down to the simplicity, to the essentials, and especially if you're in your beginning steps into the professional astrology journey, or you just love astrology. I think this is one of the more user-friendly tools in the astrology space that there are now.
All right, so this is the chart of the summer solstice on the 20th of June. I think this summer solstice is really beautiful because just a day later we have a full moon. As you can see, the moon is kind of moving through Sagittarius at the solstice moment. And so it's a very lunar, feels like a lunar focused solstice to me. While it's not a full moon just yet, it's getting there. And we also have Venus and Mercury hanging out really close to the sun. So it feels like there's a way in which this solar moment is really both tapping into like our felt sense of solstice and really able to tap into kind of how we're thinking about our value systems, what's important to us at this really cosmic moment.
100%. What's interesting, Sun is in the separating square from Neptune and Pisces. So the last day of Gemini season, Sun has been forming a square to Neptune, which is a very confusing and kind of fog creating aspect. And the moment the Sun moves into Cancer and we meet solstice, we are almost coming out of a greater sense of confusion. And because the Gemini season, particularly because of Saturn in Pisces, have been going through many delays, sort of restrictions, some stuff within our communication or outreach has been frozen by the Saturn in Pisces in many ways. So I find with Mars in Taurus, with Saturn in Pisces, this Cancer season is forming many beautiful, more supportive, more gentle aspects. So I'm looking forward to this Cancer season, actually.
Yeah, I like that also with like when we talk about pattern and cycle, again, this is summer solstice, but also we enter a new cardinal sign. And so it's a way to clarify and reconnect with our intention, our objective. Even though it's Cancer, is a water sign, it's still a cardinal sign. It is known to do like how to take action when you need to. So for the next kind of few weeks, we need to preserve or protect or nurture what we have. And Cancer is about tribe, is about family, is about who we consider our tribe or who we consider our family. And so how do we nurture them? It's a good question during the sun in Cancer, during the time of sun in Cancer. And it's also about our living arrangement. As we say, Cancer represent home. And so when you think of your home, Cancer wants to bring a little bit of like I will say nice things because we have also Venus in it right now. So where is your sanctuary in your home? Where do you feel that you reconnect with your intuition? Is where you cook, or is where you read a book in a nice corner of your home, or is where you pet your cat in front of the TV? There's this sense of finding a place in your home, whatever you have roommates, or if you're living alone in a huge space, is where do you feel that you reconnect to yourself? Where do you feel you can meditate with yourself? And there's this kind of intimacy where you find yourself being nurtured by yourself, kind of. So it's a very strong sense of reconnecting to yourself, but also in a way, there is this extension of like your tribe. Who is your tribe? Where and with who you want to spend time with, and how do you want to nurture those relationships, and how do you want to nurture your space too. So it's a great time to, I always say, redecorate your place, kind of, or find a way to move your furniture, having a nice dinner. This is how you nurture your space, the spirit of your space, but also people around you and who you cherish. So it's nice. Cancer season is nice. And now I'm in France, and I just came like 5 days ago. So the notion of family, I'm living with my family, my three sisters, my parents, my baby, and my husband. So the notion of family is very high right now for me, you know? It's like in my face. It's very nice, but it can be very intense too, you know? So just a little note here about myself.
Yeah, I just want to also add to, I think, to what you were saying, Karima, you know, Cancer is also the sign of the goddess. And summer
Mhm.
solstice in a lot of cultures is traditionally a time when you sort of, you know, make offerings to your spirit helpers, to the other world. So it's a really good time if you have a devotional practice or work with goddesses of any kind, work with deity. It's a really beautiful time to create an altar for them, really like honoring your connection with spirit as, you know, people or energies that offer you protection and support you in your spiritual journey. Um, like I think with Neptune here, yes, there's this like confusion energy, and I think we can also maybe combat that by rooting into spiritual practices, especially at the solstice. So if there's anything that you want to call in that helps you um, clarify, fortify, tap into fertility. This is all a really good time for that type of magic.
Yeah. And I just, as you guys were speaking, and something came to mind, and I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, but I want everyone to be mindful that Venus is going to be invisible for the most of the Cancer season.
Mhm.
When she's coming up as a evening star, but she has gone through her rebirth moment. So there is a slow coming out happening. So this is a positive aspect of it. But through all of the Cancer season, it is going to get a bit easier as Venus slowly separates from the sun, because sun in the moon ruled sign, very emotional, with a fluctuation of energies, and Venus invisible, like Casey, you said, rooting, like in the spiritual practice, in the inner Venusian capacity that we hold, because the outer one is going to be more hard to come by. It's going to be more it's not going to be that obvious. The Venusian principles in the collective in our lives are a little bit under the beams of the sun. So just cultivate that value system of safety and nourishment. We're going to talk about the full moon that's coming up next. I think it's full moon in Capricorn. So I think that's happening on July 21st. And that full moon like tells us that yes, full moon in Capricorn is like, we cannot come by safety and security and true sense of nourishment if we do not have really proper boundaries and structures within which we can conduct that self-care life, the self-care routine. We need a very proper foundation and discipline here. That's the whole of Cancer season, actually, not just, and we have 2 full moons in Capricorn this season. It says a lot about what this season is about. It is about the boundaries so we can continue to feel nourished and cared for by ourselves and by our community.
So important. Yeah, I think so much for about spiritual practice for me is like resilience building. It's like in those moments when things are good and flowing and you're able to connect with spirit and tend to your rituals and do your practices, that's all sort of fortifying you for the moments when like things are super tough and it feels harder to make space and you're moving through crisis, all of these things. So yeah, the more you can dig in to the discipline of like carving out time for whatever it might be, your spiritual practice is, your self-care practices, yeah, it's only going to help in the long run, especially as we look into the future. But yeah, here we are on this full moon moment on the 21st of June, right after the day after the solstice.
Just to what you said, Casey, that I really like the resilience, because we enter this Cancer season and right away we have this full moon. So this duality between those Cancer and Capricorn. And like I mentioned before, is like the Cancer and Capricorn, what they have in common is the preservation and protection in different way with different element, earth and water. And having this resilience of keeping moving forward in your spiritual practice, it's very important in that time because Capricorn is related to time, Saturn, and is where do we put our time? Where do we put our time to nurture ourselves, but also to preserve and protect ourselves? And so the resilient part is very important there because that keep us moving forward, but also like keeping doing the work for ourselves there. And yeah, I just wanted to put that this when you say resilience was very good, especially for that time.
Yeah, this full moon feels like a lot.
Yeah,
Full moons are not only like highly emotional, intense moments, and then you have this like square to Neptune in the mix. And I think for me, when I look at this, it's like that overly sensitive place we can get into where we're like easily triggered or even just like absorbing everyone's stuff. That is very much likely on this full moon. The grounding practices where you can like really reconnect with your truth, reconnect with what is yours, what is not yours. Full moons are also for release. So any cleansing practices at this moment could also be good, especially if you are highly sensitive and if you are, really soaking up other people's energy.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, like I said earlier, we have two of this. So the whole Cancer season is being like this cocoon of two Capricorn lunations in this like grip of two Capricorn lunations. So this is Saturn ruled lunation, like you guys said. Saturn is in Pisces, and the ruler of Saturn, Jupiter, is in Gemini. So we do have this mutable change in, like, full moons are in any ways are this wave of emotions that we're going to be going through the 2 weeks that follow the lunation, but with the ruler being an immutable energy, we might need to develop greater sense of flexibility within what is healing, what we consider to be supportive. Some changes have to, like, when I see this double lunation, I'm like, changes within the rigidity of certain spiritual practices and approaches have to be looked at. Change, like the fear around the endings, which is all Pisces. Saturn Pisces is the fear of ending, fear of letting go, fear of separation, right? And with two lunations, I'm like, it's inevitable. Something has to go. Something has to be like cut off. Something needs to go here. And it is within maybe how much of, when I see mutable sign ruling the lunation or like the planet being in the mutable sign, I'm like, this is evolutionary point, always. This is an evolutionary need to go, like, this is something that people, I don't think, fully understand about Saturn. Like, let's say Saturn in mutable Pisces it connects the visionary Aquarius and very naive and trusting Aries. So this bridge requires a lot of flexibility. That's what Saturn and Pisces is trying to, like, our visions might need to change. We might not see the end of this, but if something doesn't feel right with Saturn and Pisces, we really have to listen to ourselves. The body does not lie here, you know.
I really like what you just right, because the body doesn't like the notion of time that you mentioned, also about you mentioned the notion of choosing what you want to do and where you want to put your effort to, because Capricorn, with Capricorn we have an awareness of time, like we mentioned. Saturn is time, is Chronos, so we have an awareness of time that is passing, and that time is precious, and we want to be very intentional. How you would say intentional? I don't know how to say it again. Help me, guys.
Intention.
You did it.
Intentional. Thank you. You really want to be intentional on how to you allocate that time. And when I think of Saturn in Pisces, there's a strong notion, and I learned through it because with reading Saturn in Pisces, especially if you touch some personal planet, there's also the notion of sleep, of where you put too much of your time and not putting enough of your time sleeping or resting. This is a lot about how do you allocate your time, and this full moon in Capricorn will definitely have a slowing down feeling, because it's an earth sign, is a sense of anchor, grounding energy, and it's a good reminder of how do we organize our time in our life to be able to be doing what we want to do, and to be also feeling like full energy, because we see a lot of people being deprived of energy right now. We see a lot of thing around diet, around supplement, and I think Saturn in Pisces is teaching us also how to rest, how to sleep, how to take care of ourselves in that way. It's not always active, is also regenerative. And so, like we said, time and time passing and being sure that we have the rest that we need to be in a healthy condition also to function. For me, it's a very big thing here too, especially because we have 2 full moon in Capricorn. So it's reminding us really is really want to make a point here of how we use our time. It really wants to this year wants to make a point of like time. It's important. Like we have the say of time is money, but I will say time is also like helpful for your health, what's your vision, and what you want to do in life. And depending on how you allocate your time, you will be able to have a better result around those topics if you take your time and you're not on a rush with a society that is asking us also to be all the time on a rush, or like getting money very fast, being strong very fast, building muscle very fast, losing weight very fast. There's this notion here to Capricorn that's bringing us back to things this time. Things take time, and the only notion right now that is important is how do you use that time for yourself. And it's Capricorn is long-term goal, is vision. He's going up the mountain slowly. So the notion here is very highlighted, and the notion of security too and safety with Capricorn is very highlighted. Having a vision that will help you on the long run and not in the short term, is also very highlighted here. So yeah, I wanted to mention this, especially with what you
It was just like so in line what you were saying. This is the card that flew out for this full moon.
What is it? I don't see.
It's the sun.
Oh.
Which I think is really interesting because it's a full moon. And it's right after the solstice. And it really was, as you were talking, Karima, about kind of, our time, but also our energy. It really speaks to the sun's message for me. So this feels like sort of like a guiding idea or suggestion for this full moon is to be in the moment. At least try to be in the moment. Try to not overcomplicate your experience, but just like be in your animal body, be in the innocence of your experience. And just like try to find some level of joy. And like even the experience of like how hard is it for you to sink into the moment? How hard is it for you to experience joy? How hard is it for you to associate with fun or like tap into fun? That is all good information for you at this full moon in order to really think about, okay, what do I need to let go of in order for more of this like solar influence to bless my life, or more joy, more presence, more vitality, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I do like vitality. Like when I see the sun, I thought of this word too,
Mm-hmm.
vitality, to have our vitality back. And like you mentioned, being in the present moment is already a step towards recuperating our vitality and enjoying the present moment, the sun. And really, there's this warm feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And one more thing, we have Mercury sextile Mars during this full moon, which I love so much, because this is about that selectivity that guys were speaking about, cutting out through a very selective attitude, something that does not support your physical body, yourself, how you self-care, because this is Mercury. We think information, we think communication, we think the constant influx of like buzzing news, all of that, being very mindful. How is it useful to consume that much to yourself, or to yourself and to a larger collective that you're part of? What is a sustainable amount of information that you can handle that does not dampen your spirits through this experience that we're having? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I like also the Mercury in Cancer sextile Mars, because it's talking about vulnerable topic. Also, I like it because Mercury in Cancer is in a soft spot. So thing that might be frustrated or that irritate us is a good time right now to speak about it. I feel like that gives us the power to speak about it. And don't get me wrong, Mars is very assertive and decisive, but you making the choice to talk about it, and you taking the initiative to keep moving forward and to evolve in another level of communication. And so this sextile, we're getting right on the essence of what is going on, how it can be constructive, positive, and if you feel emotionally ready, that's a good transit to step in for sure. A lot of things for this full moon. A lot of things.
It is. It's a big full moon. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next transit?
I think we can move on.
Okay. So the next transit that we wanted to talk about is on the 26th. Let's see. Here we have, oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at our notes here, but yeah, here we have Mercury in Cancer making a trine to Saturn.
Mm-hmm. Making myself
like
some
it.
tea. Clara.
We need it for the Mercury in Cancer choice. um, I do, I do like it. I do feel like it's given this power to our thought, to our ideas, and to articulate our thoughts in a very constructive way. It's also happening into sign, water sign, that are um, very connected to our emotional states. And so being able to, like I said, articulate what is happening inside of us. It's a great tool to touch more people, and to help two people to understand each other. And I see Saturn more as a like more analytical way. So having in a water sign very help putting words in things that we're feeling, feeling like when we feel discomfort or an emotion that we cannot express. This transit, it's a nice one that can, the energy are here to able to exercise it, like those feeling in a very, and this sorry, I'm speaking way too much in French, and now my English is so I'm having so much like, switching between two languages right now. But
You're good.
thank you, you're with me, guys, you're with me.
Oh yeah.
So it just like that is, I think of the psychologist when I see this transit. I think of healing advice or healing manners to help express what we feel. So I like it.
This is so beautiful, not only because Mercury is trining Saturn, we have Moon in Pisces at the time of this trine, so it's going to be supporting like that day and the next day, so 26th and 27th. It's forming like that trine to Venus and then Mercury. So this whole thing, Moon though coming into the conjunction with Saturn. So like when I look at this whole combination together as it's coming to precision, I think about memory. When I think about Mercury in Cancer, the first thing that comes to me is memory. And when I think about Saturn in Pisces, is the fear to like meet the memory, to encounter the memory that is not particularly that where it's a memory of where our fears are coming from. It's a memory of our relationship with time and priorities that we set up from the early life. This is something that we can positively and like really grounded within our emotional state, tap into, remember, forgive, embrace ourselves in that sense of compassion through those priorities that might need to change or something like that. So this is for me, maybe because it's Saturn, yeah, it is something that has to do with selectivity that might need to mutate a little bit in regards to what we choose to talk about. Where do we choose to put our efforts into in a positive way? Because again, Moon is there also during this trine. I'm like, this is like this Saturn is ground in that Moon. It's ground in it to meet our present state within like where we are right now and connected to that past state where it was originating initially. Those wirings, those mental habits.
And when the moon kind of hits Saturn and activates Mercury through the trine, this could be a good moment for like just a collective boundary setting or like boundary line creation of like, this is what we want, this is what makes sense, this is how we want to move forward. And it's interesting because 3 days later, Saturn will station retrograde at 19 degrees. I don't know if that works. Sorry. There we go. Press the button. So Saturn stations retrograde.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's that like Saturn is our responsibility, is where we take more responsibility. When Saturn hit the part like in Pisces, for example, when you enter Pisces, it enters a part of our chart that asks us to take more responsibilities. And it is one of the way it can be expressed. And when it hit retrograde, usually is like review or revise what happened, and how can we reorganize those responsibility. For me, it was very intense. When he entered, for me, I'm just giving me as an example, but it was very about my house, my family, and having a baby just changed the whole like the whole, I would say, role that I had into the house, and new responsibility came into me. And now it's like kind of when you like stop and retrograde, is like, what did you do? What do you need to review? What is your organization around this? I feel like Saturn retrograde, and on a personal level, it's interesting and fun to see where is it in your chart, and when it hit retrograde, how do you feel, and how, like, are you in a period of time that you're reviewing what is happening since Saturn came into Pisces, and what did it change in this area of your life? That can be a fun way to work with astrology.
I love that
So,
suggestion.
yeah, by the way, Saturn is retrograde until November 15th. So we just have a timeline. So I personally, I'm a huge fan of Saturn retrograde. For me, any retrograde, I welcome with an open arms. I've noticed that in spite of what is being spoken widely on the social media fields, I'm always feeling the arrival of clarity and restructuring, and I'm welcoming that's like whatever energy the Saturn is transiting, or whatever planet it is, but in this case Saturn is transiting through, almost through the retrograde. I find myself so much more open to the changes that Saturn is trying to make here. So the changes in regards to how do I self-undo through the fear, because Pisces sometimes does deal with self-undoing, and Saturn deals with fear. So I'm like, everything becomes so much more apparent and clear to me through the retrograde motion, where I'm like, oh, I've been doing this thing. I'm restricting myself, because in Pisces, to me, it's mostly about what we do to ourselves, or what we allow unconsciously to be done to us, out of fear that if this ends, nothing better will happen. Like the fear of the dying cycle. Kind of, for me, it's very much like, oh, like I'm holding on. I'm putting all my Saturnian effort into holding on to something because I'm afraid. So this is something that, like, with the retrograde, I'm always like, oh, like I see I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So important. I feel like it's interesting too, just where we are in the collective, the opportunity to do that type of real reflection of like, what comforts am I holding on to that like are actually kind of harmful for either myself or the collective well-being. There's just so much that we have the opportunity to shift and that we need to shift. So hopefully this Saturn retrograde will really help us do that work on the individual level, ripple out into the collective.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that's happening, we got more retrogrades in the mix of outer planets. On July 2nd, Neptune goes retrograde. We'll get there. Oops. I feel like it's so funny. When you're driving the Zoom on your screen share, everything is like, wait, how do I do this again? At least it is for me. I don't know.
It's been
I'm
so
like,
long.
I am like that too, actually.
Maybe it's like Neptune's retrograde, and I'm like, wait, what is this reality? Am I in?
some weird wave of flirtedness.
Yeah.
Flirted, like flustered. That's what the word. I'm like,
But hey, we're witches, we're doing technology.
We already need to be tapped on our backs for this.
Yeah.
It's very interesting when you see Neptune like going at 29. It's like such a potent degree. And I was just thinking about it because I went to Norwalk and it was so much fun. I have
Oh
to tell
my,
you,
yes,
it
yes.
was so good, so good. I met all my teachers. I was literally a groupie, literally a fan of like, you know, and it was, everybody was connected. It was like feeling like a big family. It was no bar, like you could talk to anyone. It was just so open and very blessed I was able to go. And at Norwalk, there was Frank Clifford, which is a living in the UK, it's English, been doing this for 40 years, English astrologer. And he talks in one of this lecture, he talks about the critical degree of 29 or zero when a planet enter, or the 29 degree. And like, it's very interesting for us, like, because I feel Neptune going into Aries is such a new huge cycle in terms of the world, in terms of modern astrology in the world. I feel we're entering the totally new vision, new dream, new inspiration. And when I see like the 29 degree like going retrograde, like we're not ready for it yet. There's so much work to do still, you know? But we are at this critical point where everything is changing, everything is moving, and it's so unclear. The very archetypal point of like Neptune, so unclear, so foggy. We don't know. There's so much emotion in the mix. When I look at politics, that can be in any country right now. There's so much happening. Um, and I feel like this is like this retrograde time is like we still have a lot of work to do. We still like we're still gonna be in the sea, in the ocean, deep down, not be able to see clearly, and it just feel like we don't know the answer. It's so foggy with Neptune. We just don't know where we're going, but things are unfolding, and we just cannot see it right now. But it just feel like it's very interesting. They just hit that 29 and say, not ready, we're going back, you know? Now, and then, you know, you enter, like, he's going to enter Aries pretty much very big with this conjunction with Saturn. So it's just like, boom, you know, in your face. Like, so you, like, we'll feel the buildup of Saturn moving in the side of Pisces, getting ready to be in Aries and Neptune at the same time. And they're like, we're in the middle of it. We're in this transition, the in between, that's very uncomfortable, where we don't know where the world is going. Because Saturn is a social planet. It's talking about us, civilization, society. Neptune even more. So yes, on a personal level, we might feel it, but we're talking about worldwide events here more than
Generational stuff, indeed.
yeah.
Yeah, if you do have planets or points of great importance around last 3 degrees of Pisces or first 2-3 degrees of Aries, you might be feeling this. I feel this. I have Venus in 0 degrees of Aries. It's right there. It's less than degree away from my Venus right now. And just not demonizing Neptune is very important in general, I think, because it does get sometimes bad rap because of the confusion it can bring with. But what I find is it doesn't bring confusion if we are very crystal clear about our values, beliefs, especially in Jupiter ruled sign like Pisces, about our belief systems. It will challenge your belief systems if you are unclear. And it will be just a spiritual journey and like an expensive Jupiterian journey if you are clear. So it always depends on the state you are in yourself. Any transit impacts you, but specifically, I love to say this, Neptune does not bring disillusionments. Our perception brings disillusionments. Neptune just is going to challenge whatever we think we know, if it's built on the very like shaky foundations, and especially the move that's coming up from I can't remember when exactly Neptune went into Pisces. We'll have to look it up later, but more than 10 years. let's put it that way. It's been a while that Neptune been in Pisces, and any sign transiting for our collective body, we are going through a major cycle of meeting the perceptions and illusions that we build up in our heads. Belief systems shifting in a grandiose ways, while Neptune was in Pisces. And as we prepare into Neptune, we'll talk obviously more once Neptune goes into Aries, but it's like, what is the appropriate reason to pull out the sword and what is not? So we have to if the Jupiter part is not clear, the sword is going to be pulled out for all the odd reasons. So it's like we need to really concentrate on the Jupiterian aspect. And for that, there are general transits, but we need to look at for Neptune retrograde period, we need to look at where our Jupiter natally is and what is being revised and corrected, and where illusions are being broken and where they're being built. Check your Jupiter placement for this one.
And just to let you know, it was Neptune entered Pisces April 4th, 2011.
So yeah, it's like 13 years.
Yeah.
And this Neptune retrograde starts on the 2nd and will last until December 7th.
Yep. Well, okay. I think, yeah.
I do just want to, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Casey. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to just add to the fact that on this day, we have the Pluto opposition to Mercury.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, this will be like the sort of last transit we talk about for this part 1 of Cancer season. But Mercury has moved into Leo. Which I don't know, it's such like a summary energy to me of okay, Mercury expressing the sun's wisdom. It's like a reconnection with our ego, an exploration of the ego, and then forming this opposition to Pluto right away as it enters this fixed sign. It's definitely like a clash potential. Feeling what in my ego expression is met with conflict or a power dynamic, or even your own internalized shame around something that you associate with your ego or your identity. So yeah, I don't know. I think hopefully the Neptune retrograde, while it might not feel as potent as this opposition here, it initiates some kind of reflection around our ego wounding and those shadow lands that can kind of support us, but it will be, kind of a tricky day, I would say, tricky transit.
Though the support for me, I feel like the rulers of those planets in opposition, Mercury in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn and Sun, are forming a harmonious. They're in Cancer and Pisces, so they are kind of, if we allow ourselves to feel shamelessly, whatever it is that we feel within the parameters of this conflict between our ego desires and collective needs, maybe that is something, if we can allow that and do not get down on ourselves for there's this sense of how much are you willing to lift yourself up and how much is comfortable for you to lift yourself up within the collective collapse. a lot of shame comes up with that. So it's like something that we really need to look at. But because Saturn and Sun, the rulers of those two planets, I'm always looking how those two planets also connect to each other. So it's like, oh, but they are harmonious through water. They are harmonious through compassion and just allowing the time to set things in their own places.
It's very interesting time with, like, because I feel when I see Mercury entering Leo, it's bold, it's bright, it's chatty. It's it's a nice way to communicate with others. It's the sun. It's the place where it belongs to the sun, so it's very nice and bright. And when we see this opposition with Pluto in Aquarius, which is the collective, is like a clash of, like you mentioned, Mariana, what society wants or where it's going and the mood that we are in. There's a clash or a dystopia or like a reality check on like what the world is going through and where we are. Like there's something of like where we find our place into that dynamic. And I feel it's very resonant to what is happening now, where we see a lot of things through our phone, and there's that clash of like, am I seeing it? Am I stopping seeing it? But I feel depressed. But I feel like during that time it's gonna be even more highlighted. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's like we cannot. My only thing is shame is the only tool that can get us down. And Pluto, this Leo season, and the planets go, and we'll talk in the second part of this podcast how Venus will go into Leo and other energies during the Leo season. It's just like the cultivation of individual and collective shame needs to be watched very carefully, because like then it's paralyzing
That's very real.
and disempowering at the end of the
It
day.
is. Yeah.
And being in joy is empowering.
And being
Finding
in
that balance.
a sense of freedom, freedom to express ourselves. So important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, on this day, we have this Saturn Venus trine happening as well. So yeah, there's like this added layer of constriction, perhaps, or a sense of like nostalgia even for the past. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a way this is a trine. So hopefully this Saturn trine to Venus can like bring a little bit of structure around our value systems, support us like carving out time to find that joy, find that sensual pleasure, find the joy in the revolution.
Yeah. And moon is with Jupiter. I just noticed that. So we have this like moon is with Jupiter and Saturn trining.
Oh yeah, I just did too. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be big.
So the day emotionally for us, collectively and individually, can feel like this, like, can I just get to the truth of what my small individual place that is still joyful with the paradigm of what's unfolding and breaking down and coming together, like the yearning that moon with Jupiter to find that is emotionally attuned to the collective needs. A lot of the issues, most of us have not found what is emotionally attuned to both our sense of belonging and to the collective sense of needs. So it's like we are like yearning to find our niche almost.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be an interesting day.
All right. Well, this will conclude our part 1 of Cancer season, and we will pick back up with the new moon in Cancer on July 5th in our next episode. So be sure to tune in. And yeah, I feel like this episode will drop at right before the solstice. And I encourage all of our listeners to, if you're in the Bay Area, to come find us at our summer solstice event at the Center SF. We will be hosting a ritual that is a ticketed event. Myself and Alejandra León will be hosting that. It will be a blessing circle as well as a flower essence ceremony. So very solstice. And in addition to that, we're going to have a free mini marketplace. So you can just come connect with readers and vendors, and it's all going to be amazing. You can find our info on our website. So hope to see you there. And thank you both for tuning in with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everyone.
Till next time.